We did it. I have 500 YouTube followers, and so now I'm doing today's video in my unicorn onesie. Welcome to my YouTube channel, especially if you're a new subscriber. A big thank you to my author friend Melissa Blue, who did a hard push on Twitter. If you're not normally a YouTube person but you subscribe to see this, I hope that it's everything that you thought it would be. Got like a whole, you can't really see, it's a onesie. I'm wearing a onesie. Okay, so I'm wearing a onesie. It's adorable, it's kind of funny, but today's topic, like a lot of the topics on my YouTube channel, is one that I take super seriously. I also, as well as saying I'll do this video in this onesie if I hit 500 subscribers, I also let Twitter vote on what the topic of the video would be, and they chose when book marketing feels like shouting into a void was the #1 pick, and the other options on that poll, I'm going to get to those too. But today we're talking about designing a realistic book marketing plan. Full disclosure, I started to write up my show notes for this, and it was like 12 pages long. So, which would be, you know, longer than any of us want to be here. So I will put on the onesie again and again and again as we go through each of the parts of this series. And I don't know exactly how many parts it's going to be, but at least 4 or 5. Okay, so let's get started. When book marketing feels like shouting into a void and designing a realistic book marketing plan. I want to acknowledge off the top that marketing can feel thankless, expensive, and without clear reward. In this video, I want to unpack some of why that is. Namely, you are shouting into a void. We all are. And a big part of converting that void into a warm, receptive audience is managing our own expectations so we can stick with it in the long term. I'll show you that it's not you. It's the stage of publishing you are at, and this is both normal and understandably confusing. But when you understand how marketing plans work, who they work on, and why it's so hard to gain traction in the early days of a pen name or when you start writing a new genre, then it's easier to see down the road to when that marketing will work. The trick to designing a realistic book marketing plan that you can stick to is understanding the steps along the way, those realistic benchmarks that you can set for yourself, and planning ahead so that you know that you don't burn out before you get there. Okay. I also want to acknowledge that there are a lot of complicated emotions wrapped up in marketing and great vulnerability when we are financially precarious, like now. This is a time for fiscal conservatism, but I also think that it means that right now is the perfect time to talk about the realities of marketing, because few of us are going to turn around and spend money recklessly on a half-baked idea. Right now is the perfect time to consider options, do some percolating, and plan for the future. Plan is a magic word. In other videos, I've talked about how free is my favorite 4-letter F word. Plan is another very good 4-letter word. So over the course of the next couple of videos here, I'm going to suggest some specific good marketing ideas. I'm going to talk about a couple of them later in this video. But the thing with any really specific idea is that the idea, when removed from an understanding of where it sits in a larger marketing plan and how it relates to your stage of publishing, is that if you remove it from that understanding, it greatly increases the chances of it not working. And we're going to come back to what not working means. In order to properly understand kind of where different marketing actions lie, you need to be familiar with the term warm audience and cold audience. And I'm going to, in an info card, I will link to a video. I'll also link to it at the end of this video, where I just explain a marketing basics video where I explain the difference between a warm audience and a cold audience. But to recap, a cold audience, they haven't read your books yet. and a warm audience. They've read at least one of your books, or they're otherwise warm to your platform for other reasons. So maybe like they follow you on Twitter and they know you. When we're starting out, none of us have a warm audience of any kind. And it takes a good measure of luck for those initial cold audience marketing efforts to work. A good amount of luck and a lot of hustle. Back when I started publishing, I first published my first book in June of 2013. In January of 2014, so about 6-7 months after I hit publish, Courtney Milan, who is a renowned historical romance author, she had a thread on a forum called K-Boards, which was once an excellent repository for indie publishing news, but, well, I'm not on there anymore. That thread, though, is still available if you Google her name and the title of the thread, which was Regions of Discoverability. As a baby author who was 7 months published at the time, that thread explained everything to me about why I was having so much trouble gaining traction, why sales would lift if I had a new release, but then peter out to absolutely nothing in between. That sales pattern is so normal. I also tried things that I saw other people talking about on K-Boards and on other forums. For example, authors would swear that a free prequel novella was like, it was the ticket. It was the thing that would do it. But when I tried that, all I found in the marketplace were crickets. Why? Because the authors who swore it worked weren't me. And they all had different factors at play. They were in a different stage of discoverability, or they were in a different genre, or their books, maybe it was as simple as their books were hookier, higher concept, and better packaging for a cold audience. I mean, all of that's true, but I really think that stage of discoverability, or region of discoverability, as Courtney Milan puts it, it is something that not enough people talk about. And so go and Google her. I'll put a link actually to the thread in the description, because it's really, it is one of those fundamental publishing truths that has stuck with me, and 6 years later I still say that's true. All of that is true. When someone's like, why is this not working? It's because when you're in those first two regions of discoverability, everything is so much harder and you have to stick with it. In part, this is why I, in Romance Your Brand, talk about writing a new series, coming up with a different idea, one that has commerciality built into it from the very start. Intentionality in product design makes marketing so much easier. And then you can reverse engineer what successes you have on those later projects and apply those lessons learned backwards to your first series. Like, you can rebrand, you can write new blurbs, you could write new first chapters. So keep going, come up with a new series is actually, that's my whole thing on this channel, is what's coming next. You are almost certainly going to have more luck there, and all of the marketing things will just kind of naturally slot into place. But if you are currently stuck with a series that you really want to figure out the marketing plan for this series, let's talk about that. So the basic elements of a marketing plan are universal, and I break them into four categories. Although each of us will lean into one or more of these more than the others, and the perfect ratio of the marketing effort for each part of the four categories is going to be different for you than it is for me. So those are direct mail. So for most authors, that means email mailing list. Some authors, it means phone text alerts, and sometimes it means a physical mailer. All of those fall under the category of direct mail. That's direct mail. The second category is social media. Social media can be broken down into two subcategories: your own corners or your own footprint on social media. So your Facebook page, your Instagram, your TikTok, your Twitter, Snapchat, I suppose. And also the blogger and reader reach. So that's Facebook groups that are not your own. That means, incentivizing people to share your posts, And it means things like hiring a blog tour or a PR company to organize people, like blasting your stuff on release day. So that's 2A and 2B, social media. 3, featured deal advertising or email blasts. I put them in their own category. They are a form of direct mail, but they're not your own in-house direct mail to your own audience that you have gathered. So like this would be BookBub, this would be FreeBooksy, this would be any of the Facebook groups that have you come in and do something like a takeover, I think even falls under there as opposed to social media, kind of in between the two. And then the 4th is cost per click advertising. And sometimes people will ask me really specifically, like, what do I think about, what do you think about blog tours? Do they still work as a marketing tool? Or do you like Facebook group takeovers? So I just mentioned them. These are 2 really specific examples of social media marketing and or like paying to borrow someone's platform. I prefer to zoom out and label those 4 broader categories because you can get really lost in the weeds of one specific thing, trying it, feeling like you don't get an immediate return on investment. Which brings us to ROI. ROI stands for return on investment. And there's this old chestnut, I've talked about it in other videos, about you can invest time or money or both. My goal for each of you is that you come up with a marketing plan that doesn't cost you very much money and that while it takes some time, that time feels like you get a good ROI on it. But the real, the rub is that you must stick with it. So you have to be intentional in your plan design as well so that you know you're going to have confidence in it and you're going to see it through to the end. Not all ROI is immediate. And we live in an age where authors shout from the rooftops when ROI is immediate, like a really successful BookBub feature deal. And I certainly have been guilty of this. I have said BookBub feature deals are the way to go because the ROI is, I'm pretty confident in it, and it's like, orders of magnitude. Nobody is shouting about the dud email they sent where the click rate was abysmal. Sometimes you can get that honesty in like coaching groups, like my friend Holly Mortimer, who runs the Social Vert. She will happily talk about failure inside her group with her clients. But like some of the glitzier, splashier advice people, they're not being honest about that. Realistic expectations are essential to not just build a realistic marketing plan, but to stick with it as well. So part of this means that we need to reframe failure. Failure is a loaded word that makes us stop what we're doing. That didn't work. One of the most powerful observations I've ever heard about publishing success stories comes from my friend Annika Martin, who pointed out that people who have achieved bestseller status, longevity, and a big fandom, etc., whatever your metric for success is, this is something that is probably true for all the authors who've achieved that. They don't say, that didn't work. They say, how can I make that work? So if we go back to the 4 basic elements of a marketing plan, I want you to ask yourself, how can you make email marketing work for you? What would a sustainable model of that look like? How can you set a goal for social media that does not depend on immediate validation in terms of responses? What research can you do into email blast services like BookBub or FreeBooksy to better understand their utility in a marketing plan? And when and where can you use cost per click advertising in a way that you feel good about the money you invest in the testing phase before you see any results? These are not just rhetorical questions. I'm going to break down each of these 4 elements of a marketing plan, each in their own video over the coming weeks in my delightful onesie. This video is already quite long, so I'm going to make this the first of 4 or 5 videos. I'll work through each of the 4 basic categories and share my own experiences with all of them, what has worked, what hasn't, what took a while, and, to be honest, what I gave up on and how I feel about having given up on something. Wherever you are at with marketing, I promise I've been there. it has many times felt like shouting into a void, because it is a void. It's a scary unknown, but in my dorkiest Star Trek reframing, that also means it's an exciting frontier full of potential. There's a whole world of readers out there for you to find, and with the right plan, you will. So if you have any questions about marketing, if you have any questions about my onesie, if you have any specific questions about direct mail, social media, email blasts, or cost per click advertising, please leave them in the comments and I will be sure to address them in each of the videos on those 4 topics. And with that, thank you so much for subscribing to my channel. Thank you so much for thinking that it would be fun if I did this. Thank you so much for being a part of my life during this quarantine and giving me this wonderful connection with all of you. And I hope that everybody has a really great week. I hope that everyone stays safe and healthy, and I will see you soon.